Russia believed it had finally solved the problem posed by first-person view, FPV drones. For most of the conflict in Ukraine, these drones had been wreaking havoc on Russian tank columns until Russia thought it had the answer. Their new tank, they believed, would be impervious to FPV drone attacks. They were mistaken. Somewhere in eastern Ukraine, a Russian tank column encountered a reality check when it discovered that its new tank failed to measure up. Ukraine has now captured one of Vladimir Putin's experimental warfare tanks, a tank whose interior Russia had hoped would remain hidden. We have learned much about what Ukraine accomplished. According to interesting engineering, several Ukrainian brigades collaborated to ambush a Russian column heading toward a strike in eastern Ukraine. The attack involved the 60th Mechanized Brigade, Ukraine's 95th Air Assault Brigade, and the notorious Azov Brigade. Working together, these forces launched an FPV drone strike that damaged the experimental Russian tank enough for it to be captured. Further details emerged from the Azov Brigade's Telegram channel, which reported that the strike not only disabled the tank, but also killed dozens of Russian soldiers. Though its crew and accompanying vehicle drivers escaped, the modified Russian tank and a BTR-82 personnel carrier were abandoned. This successful strike granted Ukraine access to this new variant of the so-called Tsar tank. What do we know about this updated Tsar? Interesting engineering confirms that it is based on Russia's T-72 main battle tank. The Tank Museum notes that the T-72 is the most widely used main battle tank ever, produced by 6 nations at its peak and fielded by 35 armies. Developed during the Cold War, it was manufactured in the Soviet Union, Poland, and the former Czechoslovakia. It remains an impressive piece of hardware, low profile, crewed by 3, capable of speeds up to 37 mph, and armed with a 125mm smoothbore autoloader cannon, a 12.7mm anti-aircraft machine gun, and a 7.62mm coaxial machine gun. The Soviet Union built around 25,000 of them. So what's new here? While the T-72 itself is old and Russians have deployed it relentlessly during Putin's invasion, the modified version is notable because of its experimental FPV countermeasures. Hidden inside, once Ukraine recovered the tank, were improvised electronic warfare systems designed to halt FPV drones. As described by the Warzone, TWZ, the tank's turret was outfitted with multiple jamming boxes, including what appeared to be a phased array. According to Keysight, phased arrays consist of computer-controlled antennae that generate steerable interference patterns without physically moving the antenna. Russia's retrofit reportedly offered 360-degree detection of FPV drones, but the system was rudimentary. TWZ states the jammers were haphazardly strapped atop the turret, secured only with rope and a wooden pallet. It was a rough field-assembled solution, but it did work, at least until Ukraine's strike. Robley reported via X that this jamming suite had successfully countered multiple FPV drones operating at different frequencies until the ambush disrupted the system. TWZ adds that the phased array setup allowed the tank to counter many drones simultaneously. The improvised system proved effective, yet not foolproof. How did Ukraine manage to neutralize this so-called drone killer tank? The account from Atmoklasenex says that when a Russian tank column advanced, Ukraine destroyed most tanks, but the Tsar held out longer. Most FPV drones couldn't penetrate its defenses, though one did. An FPV drone struck and disabled the tank's fire control system, while barbed wire got tangled in its tracks, immobilizing it. Having rendered it vulnerable, the Ukrainian forces waited until nightfall because the tank was only about 200 feet from a Russian-held position. Attempting to seize it during daylight would have risked renewal of Russian attack. Instead, under cover of darkness, Ukrainian tankers from the Azov Brigade unlocked the driver's hatch and began repairs, replacing heavy components like cylinders and batteries, one weighing about 154 pounds, with just 2 personnel instead of the ideal 3. Their work wasn't over. They removed the entangled wire and even discovered a mine beneath the tank. The Russians attempted to reclaim it, approaching on motorcycles, but were repelled. According to a June 3rd video by Future, Ukrainian soldiers managed to start the tank's engine and drive it back to base over the course of 2 nights. However, their troubles weren't finished. The captured tank was driven into a ditch and briefly knocked its new driver unconscious. Fortunately, he recovered and they avoided a potentially embarrassing irony. TWZ suggests that this experimental T-72 was likely a one-off prototype laden with the kitchen sink approach of mounting every conceivable jamming system. While it worked to an extent, it didn't prevent its eventual capture. The real significance lies in what Ukraine gained: critical insight into Russian counter-drone electronics. Intelligence gleaned from the tank has been shared with Ukraine's allies, including the US and Europe, revealing how Russia deploys its anti-drone systems in the field. Understanding this system enables Ukraine to refine its countermeasures and continue targeting Russian armored columns. Ukraine has already inflicted devastating losses. As of June 11th, according to its Ministry of Finance, 10,127 Russian tanks have been destroyed or disabled. Over 22,700 armored vehicles and 54,579 cars or fuel systems have also been taken out. Russia had intended these tanks to protect secondary vehicles, hence the modified T-72's high-tech defenses. But Ukraine's defenses, including simple obstacles like barbed wire, have often proved just as lethal. By April 2025, about 80% of Russian tank reserves were depleted, with fewer losses in May, not due to better protection, but simply because there were fewer tanks to lose. Russia is now refurbishing older tanks faster than building new ones, but still failing to match frontline attrition. Ukraine's goal is clear: maintain that rate. Capturing the modified T-72 means knowing precisely how to counter Russia's electronic warfare in future strikes. As the war moves deeper into 2025, Ukraine will likely deploy thousands of FPV drones daily, chipping away at dwindling Russian tank stocks and possibly paving the way for counteroffensives. These drones are already responsible for 70–80% of daily combat losses, and between June 10–11 alone, Russia lost over 1,120 soldiers, an estimated 896 due to drones. Looking forward, Ukraine plans to field 4.5 million drones by year's end, while Russia aims for 3 to 4 million. Forbes correspondent David Hambling confirmed that FPVs remain Ukraine's top tank killer. As Ukraine integrates anti-jamming safeguards, likely inspired by the captured T-72, FPV dominance may grow even stronger in 2025. Ultimately, Russia's modified T-72 has been turned against it. Its drama is a warning. Expect Ukraine's drone offensive to intensify through 2025, not only in the east but even on Russian soil, evidenced by Operation Spiderweb in early June. That raid struck deep and may mark a turning point in Putin's hold on power. For a full breakdown, check out the Military Show's video on how Ukraine humiliated Putin with Operation Spiderweb, and don't forget to subscribe for the latest on the Ukraine war.